Okay, so say you've done the rounds that you need to do to get your square. What we do now is we're going to do the border of each square. Okay, so I've done 1, 2, 3, 4. I've done 5 rounds of bobble stitch. And what I want to do to make sure that it's a nice, neat square is I want to give it a border. Okay, so the border is just made of double crochet, which is UK treble. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to join the yarn in a slightly different way to how I joined it previously, because it's not really a continuation of bobble stitch, it's something slightly different. So say I have just done my slip stitch into the first chain space of the next round. I'm now gonna simply, loop my new yarn over the hook. So you see I've got a bit of a tail end there as well, so there's just enough. I'm simply just going to loop here, and I'm going to pull it through that loop, and I'm going to tug on that just to tighten the navy blue yarn, and I'm going to chain 3, because chaining 3 is what we do when we are doing double crochet at the start of a round. Now, basically how we're going to work this is, if you have done 2 or 3 chains in between corners and in between edges, you'll adjust the amount of double crochets. So what I normally do is I will do 3 double crochets into the top of these 3 chains here. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about in a minute. And I will do 2 in every other chain space. Okay, so just watch what I do first. So yarn over. Now I've done 1. I'm just gonna do another double crochet. So remember, that was yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So I've got 3 double crochets here in this chain space. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is, if you look at the top of your bobble stitch clusters, you've only got 1 chain there. Okay, so I'll just get my crochet hook to show you. So there's just 1 chain above that, because it only counts as 1 stitch, doesn't it? So through we go. I'm just going to do 1 double crochet on top of that. So I've got 3 in there, 1 on the top of this cluster, because it only counts as 1 stitch. And then I've come to my next chain space, and because I chained 2 in between, I'm going to put 2 double crochets in that chain space just to even it out and make sure that it's not too tight and it doesn't curl up. And you'll be able to see at the top of your stitches there are V's, okay? And you're going to insert your hook into that V. So you should have two legs of that V on your crochet hook. So yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So this part will become quite intuitive, because you just go through where there's a chain space. And then obviously when you get to the gaps, you do 2. Okay. So under that V, I'm just looking for them on the top of these clusters. And through that chain space. So I put 2 in the chain space to help my square lie flat. Because after all this, you may find that your square is a little bit rounded. That doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong. That is just that's just how it is, you know. And if you've used wool as well, I find that wool is a little bit more curly. It's more likely to do that curling. But once it's been washed or once it's been joined together, it will lie flat. Okay, so just remember, I'm putting 3 double crochets into the very corner chain space because I just want to, you know, help it kind of lie flat. Okay, and then into the top of that one. So I wouldn't worry at this point if you're thinking, oh, it doesn't look right, it looks too rounded. Just make sure that you have put a double crochet stitch into the top of every bobble cluster, and you know, well, at least 2 crochet stitches into every chain space. Now obviously if you had to chain 3 between each cluster in your previous rounds, then you know you're probably gonna need to chain, you need to put 3 double crochets into that chain space just to help it lie flat. But you might not. I mean, this is the part where you can experiment, because if you do something wrong, I mean, you can just go like that and just pull it out. And there you go. I've got a stitch just waiting for me to pick up and carry on. Okay, it's a little bit more forgiving than knitting is because I can just pick up where I want to. I don't necessarily have to count stitches here. I'm just getting it into the top. And it's nice doing this border as well because it just gives your square that nice, you know, finished edge. And of course, if you know, if it's got a nice, if it's got a double crochet edging, it will be so much easier to join it when it comes to joining all the squares together. So remember, this is just an example of me showing you how to do it. Don't worry if my colours are not exactly the same as yours. Don't worry if my square is not the exact same size. I'm just showing you how to finish this square. So I suppose this part will feel slightly different because you are, you know, you're just doing double crochet now and you haven't done that for a while, at least not since you were practicing. So you see already I'm starting to get that, you know, square shape to it. So I'll do 2 into each chain space. You'll know it'll either feel, you know, really tight or it might feel a bit floppy and frilly. If your square is a bit frilly, you know, and it starts to have flounces, that might mean you've put too many stitches around the edge. So I would always advise just pull back and you know, do fewer stitches. So if you've been putting, say, 3 in between clusters, maybe just do 2 instead. And that's important because when it comes to joining the blanket, you don't want too many stitches because you want all the squares to be the same size. Otherwise, it'll be really hard to join them evenly. So please don't do it and then think, oh, it doesn't matter, I can just fudge it later. That it does have to be the same as the squares that you're joining it to. You know, that's not even like just because of symmetry, that's just so that it fits. Because if you think about it, we're putting a big jigsaw puzzle together at the end. We know what all the shapes are. It's not much of a mystery, but you know, we do have to do it in some order. So I have nearly done my blanket square number 1. So remember, you're going to do this 24 times. That's a lot of TV crochet over the next couple of weeks. So to close your square off, I'll just stick one more double crochet in there just to be safe. So to close it off, just slip stitch into the top of the first chain. There you go. That's closed now. Just open it out. Now, you know, don't worry if it's curling ever so slightly, because once I've joined this to some other squares, it's going to lie flat. It's going to be square. Okay, so there is square number 1. Now you need to do 23 more squares.